Welcome to We Love the Hype, a podcast about advertising and PR from me, college lecturer Molly Wilkins. This podcast serves as a supplement for my classes, but is also open to the public with interviews and conversations that I hope will have engaging, enlightening, and entertaining stories about our industry. This interview is with Brad Harrison, currently of Atrium Healthcare in Macon, Georgia. We discuss his career as he started out covering good old-fashioned newspaper coverage, then working for Atlanta Motor Speedway, and now in the healthcare industry. It's a very interesting conversation about the evolution of social media over this time. Let's go. Brad, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. So if you would not mind, please introduce yourself to the audience, so everybody who you are, what you do, and what your background is.
Sure. I'm Brad Harrison. My official title with Atrium Health now is Senior Marketing Specialist, but for intents and purposes, introduced as the social media person on social media. I mean, I'm one of those people that I kind of wince when they call you the social media ninja or the social media guru, because it's like, okay, that's a little over the top. But so it's obviously, it's good to be recognized as that's probably the area of your expertise, but it's kind of one of those things with that. So essentially I'm handle a good chunk of social media for Atrium Health now. If you've lived in Macon for a long time, you call it the medical center, the Macon Hospital. I mean, and I always tell people, because I know, and technically if you drive by it, I mean, the big sign on top of the main hospital still says the medical center. So, you know, with that. So, but yeah, so I'm in charge of social media, with, Atrium Health now, and I've been in this role since the end of July and, in 2017.
Wow. Has it been that long?
It flies by for sure. It flies by for sure.
Wow, I didn't realize it had been that long. And then before that, you were with Atlanta Motor Speedway, correct?
Correct. So, and the way it happened was because I always kind of had, I was one of those people that grew, you know, everyone, you know, I like to laugh because I have a traditional media background, but I was one of those people that, I still remember I'm in 8th grade in middle school when someone came to speak at Career Day where I was from in Valdosta, and he was the editor-in-chief of the whole newspaper Valdosta. And he says, though, he throws out those words like, you know, I used to be a sports writer, and I got paid to go to games. I'm thinking, really? So the goal was just to cover sports for a living and do that. So anyway, so as one of the things I was into sports-wise was NASCAR and auto racing, so I had a goal then, a long time ago, early in college, of, okay, I want to cover the sport full-time one day. You know, I kind of identified people to follow, and there were some other things I wanted to cover too, but so it's kind of a thing, that's kind of your target to shoot for and everything. So I had a background, and then, so probably, so over time, I transferred to the University of Georgia to be able to major in journalism there. I was very fortunate to be able to do that, and covered the University of Georgia for the campus newspaper, the Red and Black. Mm-hmm. I covered Georgia football in 03 and 03 and 04. And, so that was obvious. And that was a fun time to do because right now it's become a crazy, huge business side. Back then it was so informal. I tell people, I mean, before the weekly news conferences, it was not uncommon for Coach Ray to just sit at the same table with the news media while we were having lunch. I mean, now, you can forget anybody on that level associate with you just that informal. So it was just it was a lot more low key than it is now. So, graduated from Georgia, and went to work as a sports writer for a small newspaper in Southeast North Carolina in Lumberton, North Carolina. And then less than a year there, Rivals.com, who owns UGAsports.com. If you follow college football anyway, it covers UGA athletics. They called me and said, it's August. We need somebody quick. And what's your interest? So it's like, okay, So I was from Georgia. I went to University of Georgia, and I'm told, yeah, we want you to move back to Athens. I'm like, sure. You don't have to tell me twice. Don't tell me twice. So I did that, and then for about a year or so, and then an opportunity came up as kind of a chance, random occurrence thing where the Macon Telegraph here needed some help on their sports desk, and I just felt like from a stability standpoint, that was something I had to do. So, in 2006, September, we moved from Athens, Georgia to here in Macon, and like many people, you have it in your head, okay, I'm just going to move to Macon for a year or two.
Right.
And here we are. It was kind of an interesting thing because, both of my parents are from South Macon. They went to what was then Willingham.
Yep.
It's now Southwest. So growing up, lots of memories of Fincher's Barbecue in New Way. I actually had an uncle for the longest time. His day after Christmas tradition was going to get a big takeout order for everybody at New Way and Fincher's in the same trip.
Yep.
So there's a familiarity with Macon before we even moved here. But yeah, like I said, like many, moved to Macon. Not intending to stay here for a long time, but here we are. So I was with the Telegraph for a couple of years, and then just felt like just with the print media landscape and everything where it was then, something came up where I got made aware of an opportunity at Georgia Farm Bureau. And the thing that perception when you hear Georgia Farm Bureau, a lot of people think, okay, that's the insurance company. But the other half of Georgia Farm Bureau is what they call the Federation side, which is basically the advocacy side for the agriculture side of things. So I was kind of a print and web specialist for them. And I was enjoying doing that. And it was kind of a special thing to a degree because my dad worked in agricultural type sales things. So It was kind of similar to what his line of things were. But then, we got back from going to South Georgia one day for work for a story. We got back and I had a phone call from Atlanta Motor Speedway from a contact I had from when I was with the Telegraph when I did a little motorsports coverage and said, we created a social media position and someone here recommended you. Wow. So about 2.5 months later, I started doing that. And the really interesting thing was, because you got to remember, this was 2009. Instagram did not exist.
Yeah, I remember that.
Twitter was barely alive. Yeah. You can make your own commentary about how alive it is right now.
Yeah.
If you had a business Facebook page, it was like, this is my personal page and this is my business. The whole brand page thing hadn't taken off yet. So it's really an exciting time because the ground was so fertile and, using just a lot of tactics of, the marching orders we're starting from ground zero here. Whatever, some things are going to work, some things aren't, and just see what happens. And it was just random things again, engaged like, hey, so-and-so's going on this weekend. What's everybody grilling this weekend? Or what do you think guys think about this? It was very, 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 very organic. It wasn't as calculated as it is now. And really the neat thing I've always said is just that some of the tactics we used were being emulated by others in the industry. So I did that. And then over time, just felt like eventually it was just felt like around 2017, the timing was good just to move back closer to the home. And then ended up here at what is now Atrium Health Management and do something similar, because of the racetrack. I was a social media lead there. So, it's very similar in the ways of, you're still telling the story of your brand. You just do it a little bit differently. There's tools and tactics you do with things like that. I always tell people ask, what was it like working at a racetrack? I tell people, the actual event was the easy part. The crazy part was those three weeks going into it. But the cool thing was always, when it's race weekend, when you get to that Monday of race week, when you see all the stuff moving in those elements, and then when the race starts, the green flag drops, and you're almost, and so the goal was obviously seeing what you've worked on for 8-9 months coming to fruition. And obviously, there are a lot of prayers for good weather. That's for sure.
Right. Yes. No, I'm sure. So what do you do when there's bad weather and then that impedes the race? Like, how do you handle that?
First of all, it's we have questions of, hey, is it postponed or not? Is it postponed or not? So it's
right.
You're getting information out. During race weekend. I would tell people you don't see much of the race because you are there's a building in the infield called the media center where media works out of. Well, PR side works out of there too. So you're pretty much, for the most part, either gathering content or you're behind the laptop responding to questions of it's things like, hey, what time do the gates open? Hey, I'm having this is going on. What can you do? Or just need help with things or questions about when things start. But then when you have weather coming in, you're getting hammered left and right with, oh my gosh, is it going to be canceled or not? And it's a case of, and then it's a matter of, as you've seen, a lot of PR is just, you have to wait for the messaging that needs to go out there the right way instead of just rushing it out there. And, and especially when you have larger brands, and I think, and you think larger brands like, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, Lowe's, Walmart, your social media is your front door, and everyone is going to come to you with, you name it, they're going to come to it. And the biggest thing I think is, I'll tell people about social media is just that, you're the first one that gets everything, but
right.
But despite the fact that you live in that space, don't take it personal. If someone says something we would have cases of someone's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst you want, whatever this weekend. It's like, okay, they may not be happy about things, but you're not mad at you, even though it may feel like it's something. The work, right. Like the hardest one was by far when, I think it was 2014 when Atlanta Motor Speedway announced they were taking one of the two NASCAR events was getting moved to another track after it had been with like 50 plus years. So, and people had kind of knew the rumors were picking up. This is probably going to happen. But then, I had to be the one to officially make the statement on social media.
Which means you're fielding all the comments too. Yeah,
fielding it. And it was almost a thing of like, we're putting it out there and we're just stepping away for now, or
for the sake
my
of
boss
your
actually told me. My boss actually told me later in the day. I remember after doing it was we put that info out officially. It was him walking up and he said, "Well, in retrospect, we should have given you a flak jacket this morning." But so there were tough days like that. I had to announce that our director of public relations, who was very beloved, had passed away due to cancer. And having to be the one that had to make that announcement too. So so there's obviously, it's like any job. There's things you enjoy, and then there's things that it's tough to do, but it was part of the deal.
Yeah. And so, one other thing that I've heard you talk about, and we have talked about, that I think is really interesting to address, and because you and I are both in social media at this same time and both ended up fielding it through our jobs at the time, our respective jobs, is the whole decision on the part of, I don't know if it was NASCAR as a whole or just certain tracks, but when they were not going to allow the Confederate flag to be flown anymore. Tell me about what that was like.
Well, lucky for us, the track that got more heat from that was in Phoenix.
Really?
It's one thing to happen. Because I actually left the sport before things got really crazy as far as the ban.
Okay.
The ban, but the biggest thing we dealt with was that one time was that it wasn't too bad, but it was that when Bubba Watson won the Masters, there was some story I'm trying to think of the detail. It was something like he wanted to drive a replica, his General Lee replica on the racetrack before a race. And NASCAR was like, no, that's not going to happen. And
would they have let him drive it even if it wasn't a General Lee replica? That just seems like a real oddball request anyway.
Yeah, but so you had, there's a little bit of steaming over the not bad. But I tell people, because here's the thing about, because the first 3 words of fan is fanatic. Yeah. And race fans are very fanatical about the driver they like, and they're fanatical sometimes about their sponsors. I mean, it's a known fact that, you can run into, it is prevalent now, but you used to have people who are like, hey, my driver's a Chevrolet driver, so I'm only going to drive a Chevy. Or my driver is sponsored by Home Depot, so you're not going to catch me dead at Lowe's. I mean, there are fans that I know when, there was a small group of fans when Danica Patrick drove when the Nature's Bakery nutritional bars came in as their sponsor. There were fans that said, this is a new sponsor. I want to support them because they're a new sponsor. I mean, you even have, now like, there are fans even now today of like Bubba Wallace, who I'm pretty sure will use DoorDash because they sponsor him, or wear Columbia stuff because they're a sponsor of him. So that fanaticism goes in that corporate support as well. So the fans are very passionate, not just about drivers they like, but also things about that they don't like. Don't like as well. So, but I was fortunate in a way as far as timing that I left when I did, because when I left in July of 2017, and that was before everything with I just mentioned Bubba Wallace. I mean, if you want to know Bubba Wallace, if you want to just go on Twitter and just search Bubba Wallace, and you'll see some of the comments he gets on everything. Or it just, because after I left, you had things like, okay, they banned the Confederate flag. Bubba Wallace ran a race with a Black Lives Matter race car scheme.
Yeah.
Things that, 25 years ago, you wouldn't have even, I still remember this a few years ago. My wife's husband is from Turkey, and I was showing him one time the opening clip of the movie Days of Thunder from 1990, and one of the biggest things that jumped out to him was, if you go watch, and you can watch on YouTube, of how many Confederate flags you just see flying in the infield in the opening credits of that movie. So, so it was just there were so many things that just, again, I was lucky that I was not involved in the sport in my role when I did, but I would imagine I did not envy people in the sport who had to monitor comment sections when that news dropped, because you probably needed a lot of Maalox and Tylenol.
Right. So moving on to Atrium, and of course, I know I've asked you about this before, but COVID. In the hospital. I think we're going to be talking about this for the rest of our lives, honestly. And I'm sure some students are like, I'm tired of hearing about COVID. But it's being able to being able to reflect on how y'all handled that, I think, is really important, because it's applicable, I would think, for any kind of crisis communications situation. But you tell me.
Yeah, the biggest thing is just, people are looking for information, wanting to get information out to be, of what they need, so things like, it was things like, okay, what do I need to know about, where can I receive a vaccine, or what should I know about, safety precautions and things like that, because I think, especially early on, there was a lot of, you think back to March 2020 when the whole thing, or when COVID first started. Yeah. There was so much, it was so much of an X factor even then. So I think, I think that as time went by, I think that, we obviously as time developed, we would put out some information about, how many current patients we had in the hospital that had COVID, and that helped to kind of, underscore, the seriousness of it and everything. And the other challenge we kind of encountered, one was that, you're used to doing everything in person,
Right.
All of a sudden you go to that I've always joked that I wish I could go back in time and buy stock in either Zoom or Microsoft Teams from like 2017, because
no kidding.
that became the way of you did all in all video. Like, for example, to help get information to the public, for those precautions, what we would do is we just had like a Teams or a Zoom session with one of our physicians with news media. I mean, that was the way you got it. You got to be creative with it, because of precautions for safety, and everything. Since news media were not permitted in the hospital, we had to be creative at times. So we would just sometimes just do like a Zoom session, or the really creative thing we probably had to do, at least for what I dealt with, was so one method of treatment for COVID was the mononuclear infusions.
Right.
Infusions, and we were actually giving those out. And so we actually had one media outlet wanted footage, some B-roll of that. So news media wasn't allowed in the hospital. So the solution we had was that I had to put full PPE on. We're talking the mask, the gloves, the face shield, the foot covers, everything. And I had to put all that on and get an iPhone camera out and videotape someone getting that infusion.
Wow.
And I was told, by the way, you're having to put this on, number one, for partially because you are going to be 5 feet away from somebody who has COVID. So being told that, and when you got a family at home, and one of which is severe special needs, thinking you don't want them to get a piece of this, it kind of it hits home a lot more. When you get told that.
Jeez, that is really.
But it forced a lot of people to be creative and adaptable. That's for sure. Yeah,
no kidding. So, for anybody who's looking to enter a PR career, I think sometimes it's very easy for students to think that they have to start in one place, like start where their end goal is. But you've been able to weave your career in through different media outlets, through to the very beginning of social media, and even into more established PR type of work. What would you say to students who, they think that, they have to start where their end goal is, but maybe they're not aware that they can kind of take a meandering, I don't know if meandering path is really the word for it, but like you can evolve into your roles. What would you say to them about that?
Biggest thing, do not lock yourself into one thing early on.
Right.
Don't try to, and that's one thing you tell a lot of interns and a lot of things like, don't rule out a chance to try to live something different. 15, 20 years ago, I would tell people, okay, I want to write, I want to do this. Now, I will, now it's, you're using, stuff like using Canva to create graphics. Right. You're taking photos, you're capturing video, you're doing things like helping do media interview escorts. So, especially early on, don't limit yourself to one thing.
Right.
Don't be, and even if like if you're doing a little bit of something different on the side as you're going on, because you never know when you might be an opportunity to do that. Because the irony is that when I was on the motorsport side of things, because a lot of people envision PR and motorsports of the stereotypical thing for a lot of people is if you watch a race on TV after a race is that you'll see someone with like a polo shirt on. They're basically the PR rep to make sure the interview gets okay, and they're also kind of the making sure no one says anything regrettable.
Right.
But working in racing, I never did that because I was in social media. But now there are times where I will get a call saying, "Hey, we've got this person needs to interview with so and so. Can you be there to make sure everything's facilitated?" So, never close the door on an opportunity.
No, that's awesome.
To do something different, because you never know when it might come up. Because if someone would have told me 20 years ago that, the time's going to come where you're going to be editing video together and stuff like that, I wouldn't have taken them seriously.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Thank you so much for being willing to speak with us today. I very much appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah. Special thanks to our guest today, as well as all the sponsors for my content production. Advanced Dental Arts, Katie Berg at Mayo Hill Law, El Sombrero Restaurant on Forsyth Road in Macon, Georgia, and Triple Dot Social. You can find links to all of their websites in the show notes. Be sure to give them a visit as a thank you for their support. Show music is Drop the Tapes by Track Tribe from the YouTube Content Creator Studio. Again, my name is Molly Wilkins, and I am a lecturer in the Department of Communication at Georgia College and State University in beautiful Milledgeville, Georgia. To learn more about me, check out all my social pages with the handle Love Molly Kate, or go to HelloMollyWilkins.com. Be sure to continue to follow along with us with this inaugural season of We Love the Hype.